Continuing our theme on the border, we have somebody that is going to give us a lot of stats on what's really going on the border, but I would love to have him back again. He is currently the president of the Center for American Restoration, but he was the former director of Office and Management and Budget. He was involved in a few things. He had a big hand in helping Trump slow down the disbursement of hurricane aid to Puerto Rico when there were all those problems. He also was the guy who held up the aid to Ukraine, where everybody said it was so bad. Turns out, no, the president was right to do that. He is also the guy who helped find the money to build the border wall as the director of Office and Management and Budget. Oh, and the last thing he's known for is he's the guy that Biden's people said were obstructing his team from knowing anything on the transition. And he wrote and he said, I'm giving you everything that I can give you. My office is working with your office, but I'm not going to help you destroy everything that we've worked for. So you're going to have to wait until the inauguration on that. His name is Russ Vought, and he joins us now. Hi, Russ.
Hey, Glenn. Thanks for having me on.
You bet, man. I've got so many questions, but I know we want to, because of our limited time, I want to focus on the border. First of all, there is a compelling story out of Cochise County where the sheriff there is saying this is an absolute nightmare. They were building the fence, and then as soon as Biden got in, they stopped construction. So all the roads that were built for construction are all now being used by drug cartels, and nobody's doing anything about it. And they've made the problem much, much worse by stopping the construction.
It is a complete mess. This administration has taken an ideological approach in which they have refused to account for all the steps that we put in place to be able to control the border after dealing with our own surges. It was the border. It was the Remain in Mexico. It was the changes to asylum. And all of these things were done to deal with the imperfect nature of current law. And they have wiped those away, and now they have a massive problem on their hands. One of the main aspects is the border, and it has made no sense.
During the Obama years, the border was always a problem, and we were always getting these groups that were, marching people up. Trump had one group start to march up, but he dismantled that. Can you go into, were you part of that? Did you help turn those people around, those, what was it, 3,000 or 4,000 people that were marching to the border? And he turned them around. Were you part of that?
It was a team effort. My responsibilities were mainly to help with getting the resources for the wall, helping them to get some of the rules done that were needed to change the policies that were in place. But you're right, Glenn. The president dealt with similar surges that were coming from the Central American countries, and he was able to put policies in place that dealt with them. This is not rocket science, particularly because we demonstrated over the last 4 years how to do it. What you can't do is then say to the entire world with a neon light, come to this country, and we won't arrest you. It would be like me saying and putting out a public service announcement that says, I'm going on vacation and my house is unlocked, but don't come to my house and steal anything.
I heard NPR today say that Joe Biden is giving $5 billion to these countries south of the border. And Trump's policy was he would deal with anything, just keep your people from coming up here. And so he was giving money to the shadiest dictators and everything else down there, where Biden, he's going to spend the money honorably. Can you tell me how the President Trump was giving money to dictators and didn't care where that money went?
Yeah, no, he actually put a hold on a lot of foreign policy that he felt had some serious issues, whether that was Pakistan, whether that was funding in Gaza. And that was one of the things that we took quite a bit of heat on from the Hill and the media, because we said, look, we're going to pause it, and these are wide open accounts. Unlike the current funding for the wall, where there's not a lot of flexibility for the administration, in foreign aid, you have quite a bit of flexibility. And so we put pauses on that funding to figure out what's a better use of the money. With regard to Central America, we put a pause on it and said, look, we're not going to give you this money unless you deal with the fact that you're sending huge swaths of your people north to our border. That's what caused it to be able to negotiate agreements with those three countries in particular, and then to get Mexico to start enforcing their southern border, and the threat of tariffs also helped with that matter.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the beds and the room for all of these illegals. When President Obama was in office, I went down to the border. I was the first person to talk about these cages that they were keeping children in, and I thought it was wrong. I talked about it. No one. I called Chuck Todd myself and said, "Look, this is what's going on in the border. It's a huge problem, and children are being separated and just put in cages." They didn't care. Then Trump got in, and it was a big deal. Now they're saying, no, those cages have been removed. Those cages don't even exist anymore. We've got them in really nice trailers now. But they're going to places like our convention center here in Dallas. Can you tell me the real situation on the ground? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, so the process is this. When they come across the border, the kids are only allowed to be in these in Custom Border Patrol facilities for about 72 hours. So they have that shot clock that they're dealing with. But then they are transferred to HHS, and in terms of unaccompanied alien children, and that's what you're seeing the rush to be able to figure out how to scale up with those those sets of individuals, to be able to make sure that they can live while the HHS goes and tries to find a sponsor for them. And of course, there is significant things that we do. We don't make that. We make it comfortable for them. So the American taxpayer makes it so that those kids, once they're out of the Customs and Border facility stations, sometimes it's trailers, sometimes it's retrofitting an arena, but that's when the federal government steps in to try to scale up the way station while we look for sponsors, and it can be pretty costly, and it's something that you don't have resources for in the moment. When you have a surge come across, it's much more of something that needs to scale over time, because if you're not dealing with a hard facility, you're dealing with tent cities.
So what do we have coming our way? I mean, we're already in the convention center business, and I'm not seeing this administration do anything to discourage. They're saying, don't come yet. Don't come right now. Come later. But I'm not seeing anything that is discouraging people or hurting the drug cartel's business at all. If they continue down this road, what are we facing?
I think we're going to see more of the same, Glenn. I don't think real change requires real change, and they have an ideological problem. It's not just that they don't like the policies that we put in place to deal with, but they believe that everyone should be able to come to this country, and they have a built-in view that it's all as a result of fleeing persecution and violence, and that's not always the case. And when it is the case, it doesn't mean that there isn't better solutions on your way to America, that America doesn't have to be the final destination for everyone in this world. And the combination of those two worldview issues on a policy and from the theory is going to make it very hard for them to get a handle on this. And so my concern is that they're going to need resources at some point to pay for these beds, to pay for these facilities. They're going to come calling to Congress. And at that point, my hope is that the slim majorities in the House and the Senate allow us to change policy to make it so that we can get a handle on the border, even if they don't want to.
Well, you've got a group of people that want to abolish ICE. What happens if they abolish ICE? What does that even mean to the average American?
It's another example of how far left and extreme their views are. And if they're calling to Congress for resources, And the AOC contingency, the Quad, is saying, look, we're not going to give them another dollar. Hopefully that gives Republicans a little bit of leverage to say, well, you're going to change our border policies so that we don't have these magnets in current law that attract illegal aliens from across the country, across the world.
As a guy who was the director of the OMB, and that job, if I'm not mistaken, is to find the money and find the way to implement the policies that the president wants. It's a very powerful office. And as we have seen really over the years, especially with Obama, once you institutionalize stuff, it's hard to claw it out. I don't think Donald Trump I don't think he got it. He was fighting so many fires. I don't think he had time or got it fully until maybe until the stuff with Ukraine. But as a guy who sat there and watched all this, when they were coming in, what is the thing that worries you the most about the changes or the switches that they are flipping?
Yeah, they have a capacity to move with such speed and energy because the media doesn't report on anything that they're doing, and they don't get the leaks from their own staff that many of us face. For those of us who had to live in a fishbowl, that's the job we signed up for. We're happy to do it. But it is much harder to control the message and to move forward and to get a hold of your agencies. It took me about 3 years to really figure out all of the tools that in my toolbox to be able to maneuver and to accomplish the president's agenda. So, the things that they were able to move very quickly once they came in. But the things that I'm most worried about is their ideological disposition to put equity and critical race theory as part of every single decision they make. And so they can use a place like OMB, which is involved in everything, to say we're going to deal with equity and we're going to deal with climate, two so-called emergencies that, in my view, do not exist, and use that agency to push it out on every policy that the federal government is involved with. We
have something that happened to us this week that we've been doing investigations along those lines, and we're going to be revealing it next week. But they are moving at lightning speed, and it is terrifying if people don't understand what's really going on. Russ, I want to thank you so much for your service. I know you're with the American Restoration Center, that I'd have you on again and we can talk about that. But thank you so much for everything you're doing and have done in the past. I got to believe in some ways it probably was the best times of your life, but also just total and complete hell. It was a full-on blast. I love working for the president. I appreciate you getting our backs when it was necessary. Thanks for having me on. Thank you. I appreciate it, Russ. Thanks.